Welcome to Mastering Fundraising, a podcast for nonprofit leaders of all titles and all experience levels. Mastering Fundraising endeavors to cover the most important fundraising topics with the goal of helping the audience reach their full potential as fundraisers. This podcast will share stories, tips, and guidance on the most important elements of fundraising. If you want to earn an advanced degree in fundraising, this is the podcast for you. Mastering Fundraising is a collaboration between Fulcrum Nonprofit Leadership and the 5-Tool Fundraiser, two leaders in providing relevant and expert content to fundraisers and nonprofit leaders. Without further delay, let's jump into the current episode. Please join me in welcoming your host for today, Chris Looney.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Mastering Fundraising. Today, we're joined by Christina Romero, Executive Director of the Santa Ana College Foundation and one of the most relationally gifted fundraisers in the community college sector and broader fundraising marketplace. Christina is widely respected for her ability to build deep trust with donors, strengthen organizational credibility, and cultivate a sense of meaning that outlasts any single campaign or gift. Her work demonstrates how authenticity, emotional intelligence, and a strong value structure can transform the ways donors experience philanthropy. And Christina brings a powerful approach grounded in her trust triangle framework, her understanding of social capital, and her belief that personal and professional relationships are inseparable in the world of fundraising. She's also known for helping fundraisers understand the love language operating systems that donors respond to and how a personalized approach can elevate results and long-term engagement. Wow. This conversation.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. This conversation is going to be full of insight. So let us get underway. Christina, welcome to the show and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Chris. It's really an honor. We've been working together for almost a decade and have known each other for quite some time. And I really appreciate the community that you've built with Fulcrum. And I hope that today I can be of service in some way. And I'm just excited, actually, to connect with you in this way. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, we're excited to have you. And it is a wonderful community that we have in the fundraising world, in the nonprofit world. I don't know if we want to, let people know how nice it is to be in this world. Although, it's not without its challenges, and we're going to talk
Yes.
about the difficult work of fundraising today. So before we get into the concepts that guide your fundraising work, let's talk a little bit about your leadership journey. And I'd love it if you can share the story of how you first entered the fundraising profession and how your path led you to the Santa Ana College Foundation.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Chris. I was really lucky to have early mentors in my career when I became a community college professional. And I really have a framework historically of being in economic development. And so I think in the economic development work that I was doing, working with small businesses and other outside stakeholders, I started to kind of hone in on this passion and also skill set on collaborations. Then we started to kind of build a portfolio in our economic development world related to some fundraising, or in that case, it was definitely not necessarily called fundraising, but the idea where you're handling investments for the sake of a particular constituent group. And really that's when I started to hone in skills that are really related to fundraising. I had early mentors that identified some of those strengths in me, and an opportunity came up at Santa Ana College, which was part of the community college I worked with. And at the time, I had moved up in economic development up to an associate director, and a executive at the community college district really kind of pointed out that they thought that I would be a good fit in the world of development and advancement. And I was really lucky that I didn't overthink it. I think that the interview, the process, and the relationship-oriented nature in which this particular role was introduced to me made me feel comfortable enough with a lot of, I guess, faith in some of my core God-given skills that I took
Yeah.
that leap. And it's really been I know this sounds so, like, I guess kind of corny, but it's really been a gift to me personally and professionally. And just to touch on what you said, if there are professionals in the nonprofit sector listening, which I'm sure they are, or there are people that are thinking of becoming a nonprofit executive, I would say that during a transformative time in our world as now, being able to have a critical why in the work that you do and knowing what you're doing is really centered around others couldn't be a better medicine for some of the things that we are counteracting. So I do feel like it's a gift, and it is very hard work, and it's an art and a science. So I appreciate jumping into that, but that's my background.
That's awesome. Well, when you look back on your career, what aspects of fundraising or leadership bring you the most meaning?
I was thinking about this, and I think that there have been different mentors and aspects that I've been able to observe and also been able to experience. Some of the most meaningful experiences that I've had, particularly that have married the community college initiative with the idea of stakeholder collaboration, which I think is one of the most magical things, is having leaders in the community college sector that I've worked for historically that have built true value structure collaboratives, intersegmental collaboratives, where people have one shared value, then they are working off of different institutional frameworks, but they come together. To see that in my early part of my career under leadership here at the college was just absolutely fascinating and magnificent. And it became this inspiration point for me really early on. And so I referenced that. In addition, of course, I like really I guess high quality things, and that doesn't change in the world of my professional attributes. Like, I aspire to be around people that intimidate me, and so individuals that I've been able to work with in the world of professional development, people that are doing much bigger I guess gifts, or they're just so much more honed in on those best practices. Those have been inspiring mentors to me too. That being said, I'm excited to talk about some of these other holistic, I think true to self skills that I think everybody could possibly hone in on, that are outside of what I would say are the quantifiable skill sets that fundraisers have. This is more of a
Yeah.
qualifiable, much more of a soft skills conversation, but it's really been dream makers and innovators that have inspired me over the years.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It sounds like you've been influenced by some incredible mentors. As you think about your own personal philosophy about fundraising, donor relationships, and leadership, what is it, and how has that kind of philosophy evolved over time?
Simply put, the ability to figure out what one's core value structure is, what allows you to feel passionate and ignited. That is the starting point to having meaningful work, in my professional and personal opinion. What is your North Star? What is true to who you are, so that you can use that center stage to then build off of the energy of something that's true to you. And then from there, I really feel that everything else happens authentically, because if you're authentically speaking towards what matters to you, how you approach things, what value structure you have, what are you passionate about, then from there other people have permission to share those passion areas, or they're giving you're giving them permission to be themselves. And so I think my philosophy around how I would personally describe my fundraising, not just journey, but how I approach it, is how can I be authentically me, strategically focused, and relatable enough to make somebody feel seen and heard, so that I can ignite their passion and structure around what the value and mission is of the organization. And we'll talk more about this based on some of the
Yeah.
things that you and I discussed. But I think it's personal, it's authentic, and it has to be born first from a place of you. And I think that really creates an energy where people feel like they're drawn into something and they don't exactly know what it is. And it's kind of
Yeah.
undeniable.
Yeah, no, I love this. The conversation's already getting me excited because it's so kind of new agey and
Yeah.
theoretical,
Yeah.
where most fundraising stuff is so dry and prescriptive. So I just hope I have the mind for this conversation, but let's see. We'll test it out. Let's get into the conversation, and we start
Yes.
with this triangle concept that you've created. I think we need to brand it. We need to come up
Yeah.
with it, or maybe we will as a result of this conversation. But the triangle includes social capital, authenticity, and trust. And
Yes.
let's start with sort of social capital and donor
Yeah.
meeting. Talk a lot about social capital as a core part of fundraising. How do you define social capital in a donor context, and why does it matter so much?
Absolutely. I think that, of course, if you go and chat GPT social capital or look up the definition, I'm going to stay within sort of a spectrum of what it means in a literal way and then what my application is to it. And
Yeah.
so, particularly in fundraising, social capital is the investment and the competency and overall, I guess, the trust and the investment that you've put into yourself but into the relationship. So what other people might call social capital, people call your brand, your ability to show up. I'm going to go further than that. Social capital is how many marbles are you putting in the marble jar to the person across the way from you, and how much capital do you have with them because you're taking this approach that you're investing in them. And so intrinsically, people want to be seen and heard. So, what do I mean by social capital in the world of fundraising? You have to start with like intrinsic human relations when you think about the fact that you're asking people to do something they don't have to do. This is just like such a unique industry. People don't have to give, and you're actually this facilitator and vessel for them to give into something, a mission, an organization that they hopefully believe in. And so where it starts is like who you are. People give to people. I mean, yes, they give to organizational missions, but it starts with the relationship that you create. And so social capital to me is investing over time into a relationship and a person so that when I make that call to not ask for money, but to lean into something that I have that capital with them, that I've invested. It's almost like a savings account that I've invested in, not just so that the mission is accomplished of the organization, in this case, so that students are not denied educational access due to financial constraint, but also that like there's a vested understanding that I care about who you are and what intrinsically matters to you too. And I have found that when you use that as like an internal compass first, all the other things naturally happen. But I will say to your point about this conversation, I absolutely value the juxtaposition of black and white best practices in fundraising and learning so much more about the moves management process. And though that is not my wheelhouse of where I naturally go, I think that taking this kind of conversation and marrying it with those best
Yeah.
practices can help. But I would just say that, yes, social capital is this ability to have invested in something. And so also there's a lot of attributes. You have the competency, you're showing up, people can trust you. And we'll talk about trust as being the secondary
Yes.
on the triangle. But to me, social capital is, the investment and the withdrawal system of human relationships. And have you invested enough to be able to withdraw? And that's what I think social capital is. And do you have the proof? People trust proof. Do you have the proof in the background to show up and to say, yeah, all the things I promised you, I did.
Yeah, I love that. What in your mind creates real meaning for donors beyond the transactional elements of the gift or giving?
Well, first and foremost, finding meaningful ways as much as possible to remind them of why it matters so much that they have chosen your mission, your organization, your students, your people. We often think they are connected. We often think that the emails and the tax letters and the phone calls and the business proposals remind them. But it's actually a story or a moment or a text message. And we'll talk about superpowers, when we talk about how people can trigger these particular types of human connection skills. But I think it is deeply obligatory to remember that it is our job to remind people in authentic ways why they matter and what work they are really doing, because it's so much more than just making a gift. And so I think that's what matters. And then fundamentally, people are still people. Donors are humans. They want to be seen and they want to be heard and they want to know they matter. And I'll speak more to that later about like how can you become relatable, and open that ability for people to be also seen and heard so that they can be relatable too. I think people want to relate and connect. And I think that when you have that magic, you have meaning. It's just like, it's just intrinsically there. Like, oh my gosh, that's happening. So connecting oneself to the mission all the time, reminding ourselves that donors are not as close to the work that we do as we think they are. So what story or tidbit or call or information can I share with them that will make them feel not valued for the sake of ego, but valued for the sake of purpose? Oh, I can't hear you now.
Oh, I'm
Oh,
sorry,
there you go.
sorry,
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 it's
sorry,
okay.
sorry. Yeah, that's great. So I think fundraisers have this capacity to make donors feel personally seen, valued, and a part of something that matters to them,
Hmm.
which is a superpower to your point. How do fundraisers accomplish that? How does that
Well,
happen?
I think the best of the best would say listening really well. And I'm going to go beyond that. And I'm going to say that the more you can hone into your intuition, which is just a superpower. Your intuition, you use it in your personal life, you use it, and some people do have more touch points with it than others. And I think it can be a trained skill that you hone in on. But listening with with real ability to understand that there is a lot that is not seen and heard that's literal. So listening carefully and listening to the way that you feel when you're across the way with a prospect or a donor or a stakeholder or an alum or somebody that could be part of your community. There are feelings that are running through you, there are emotions, and then there's the cognitive function that you have about this is the objective of the meeting, this is what we're going to get done. And we have to marry all of that. But I think back to your question, I think that fundraisers do that by listening. I think they do that by delivering. And when I say delivering, I mean delivering intrinsically to what the person's needs are. So in order to get to the needs of the organization or to get to the other side of the objectives of a meeting, which is kind of what you had mentioned in terms of these best practices, right? You have to intrinsically get to what makes somebody tick. And when you can understand their love language or what is making them sit in this seat across from you, and when you can listen to those intuitive bells that are ringing off in you, those are the ways that you can turn on such a magical gift, which is that this person might want to give of themselves selflessly to your organization. And so I think it's really that fundraisers understand how to navigate and then how to put together packages based on information that they're hearing. And then I think they're unapologetic too, meaning that, of course, people that have shared with me in their mentorship to me that we are not asking for ourselves. And so reminding ourselves as fundraisers that we aren't asking for us. We need that. Even the most dynamic fundraisers, the most successful fundraisers have to have that moment right before the $50 million gift ask that they are nervous, they are impeding, and they're sort of hesitant. And so what keeps you centered? This is for our students at Santa Ana College. And so I think that being unapologetic about what you believe in and why you're working in this capacity also helps you become a successful fundraiser. So in short, I think it's listening, being able to put together very thoughtful I wouldn't say the word product, but thoughtful collaboratives and partnerships, and being able to take the information you have, synthesize it within something that's mission centric, and then to be able to present it. And even presenting it can't be cookie cutter. And we'll talk about that. It has to be personal to that person. And so I think those things make good fundraisers, along with, of course, a whole bunch of other things that we won't get into today.
Yeah, right. No, that's good.
Yeah.
The other 2 points on the triangle that we want to talk about are authenticity and trust.
Yes.
So, as part of this framework, triangle framework, can you kind of walk us through what authenticity and trust mean to you and how fundraisers can apply it?
Absolutely. I'll start with authenticity just because that is probably so synonymous with who I aspire to be and who I am. Like my ability to wear different um, I guess masks is low, meaning like I don't have that skill. My skill is being authentic when I'm nervous, when I'm up against a challenge, when I'm deeply connected with somebody, when I'm trying to focus on the deadline or the pressure, when I'm trying to be strategic. It's all done with authenticity. It's imperfect, but it's real. And I think people can pick up and smell anything that is not authentic. I can't say the word now. If you are not being authentic, I think people pick up on that. And when you think about the magic and the very specific role of a fundraiser and a fundraising unit, I just can't explain how important authenticity is. I think it needs to be a core skill that people learn how to not build, but how to be in touch with. Everybody has an authenticity to them. It's just a matter of what makes you authentic. It may not be being a chatterbox like me. I mean, I was voted most talkative in eighth grade and my senior year in high school. That's me. That's
Great.
my story.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to be surprised by that, but somebody else's authenticity is true to who they are. And I think people want transparency. When people are giving you $100 or $100 million, when they're investing in something that they don't have to invest in, they need to know that what they're seeing and hearing is
Yeah.
real. Is real.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that to me is the first and most important thing to say about authenticity. I think it also can just be your North Star when you're lost or confused and you're scared or you're feeling a lot of pressure as an executive or any member of a fundraising team. That will always take you all the way home. It will take you all the way home and back to what you do.
Yeah. Well, it is so funny how great fundraisers are not all the same.
Yes.
They're so different in terms of personality and interests and the way they engage with others. Some can be very friendly and outgoing, and others can be very shy and nervous, or even kind of a little dour and
Yeah.
sad. But they're authentic to themselves and they're
Yes.
consistent, right?
Yeah.
They're not. Kind of jumping all over the spectrum to kind of find the right footing for themselves. They are who they are. Those, I mean, the successful ones, right? And I think there's an element though of being able to um, adapt. I won't say be a chameleon because that could be offensive to some people who think you have to change and not be your authentic self. But
Mhm.
I mean, adaptability is a different quality in that you can find comfort um, in a variety of settings, and you don't have to make other people feel uncomfortable because of your kind of
Yeah, your
your
makeup or the way,
way.
yeah, your way. And I think I need to learn. There's so much more I can learn from individuals, professionals, and people in my personal life. I think we tend to definitely attract ourselves to opposites. And I think we need to lean more into your comment professionally, like being around people in our industry and outside of our industry that approach things differently. How fascinating that we can get to the same place, meet our goals, maybe raise, and exceed whatever fundraising that we need to do, but do it differently. And I think that being around people that are much different in their approach is a wonderful professional development activity. And so back to what you said, like, I think that you are correct. In order to be successful, you don't have to have a certain personality type. What I'm speaking of too is related to that. It's not about personality. It's sort of about these very core things that are intrinsic to who you are. And
Yeah.
I can't wait to talk about trust because I kind of want to speak about,
Go.
yeah.
Trust.
So trust was really the third part of the triangle that was built out of a set of experiences of volunteers that really informed the inspiration of why I continue to work at the foundation. And what I mean by that is I thought a lot last night about trust in the triangle and who's taught me the value of trust in my professional capacity as an executive director of advancement. And I couldn't be more grateful that the first lessons and teachers that I was able to interact with in this area were volunteers and board members, specifically volunteers and board members that were born in a different generation than me. And I really want to speak to this because it really has shaped how I look at the ethics around trust and how different generations value trust and approach trust in a different way. And when I first came into this work, I was really lucky to be around people that were mission centric, alumni, real volunteers, which is a whole nother podcast, a loss of volunteerism and sense of service that taught me that when you shake the hand of somebody, that is the contract. That when you show up 15 minutes early than when the meeting starts, that is where the trust is being built. And that informed how I spoke to other stakeholders, how I approached my donors. And so trust isn't just, of course, how do you build trust? I mean, common answers: show up and do the things that you say you're going to do. I think you build trust through intimacy, even in a professional setting. So I'm going to speak about some other things about trust that maybe aren't defaulted to what people think of when they think of trust, and even in a professional
Great.
capacity. I think intimacy, appropriate intimacy, sharing, and trusting and building trust is born in small moments. A very good friend of mine,
Yeah.
professional friend, has always said this to me: trust is built and broken in small moments, not in big moments, in small
Okay.
moments. And so that moment when you can loop in a board member about something that may seem small to you, but could build a sense of trust. Like, I trust you that this information is going to be held in a sacred space, but also I trust your judgment and that you can help me. And that's why I'm telling you this. Or I trust you with this proposal that I've been really thoughtful about, but I also am going to be honest with you. Here are some areas that I'm struggling in trying to get right about this particular opportunity. And I hope it's okay that I am authentic enough and I am being vulnerable enough to share with you that I need more information from you to make this right. And trust is knowing when to say, not only knowing when to say sorry, but being able to be really humble about why you're apologetic and finding personal ways to allow people to be able to have you be seen. So everybody thinks trust is about doing things for other people, but we'll talk about later how the triangle, or being personable, is also about being relatable and giving permission for people to know a little bit about you without breaking any boundaries in a professional setting. It gives people permission to make you more human. And I think that when you are more human, people are more intrinsically connected to the idea of wanting to show up for you and the organization. You're not just, oh, I'm
Mm.
Christina Romero, the executive director of the Office of College Advancement. It's just so like, no, I'm Christina, and this is what I'm really excited about, and I'm not going to apologize about it. And I think you can come along with me on this journey. Like, what do you think? And we'll talk more about conversations and how people can practice skills. But I do think trust is a lost, in some ways, it's a lost, it could be a skill that can be brought back to professional development worlds. And I think that I've learned a lot about trust from people that were born in different generations than me, because, they carry themselves differently.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Well, it sounds like trust can be unintentionally broken by just sort of the smallest little things.
Yeah.
And no one talks about trust in the way that it can be taught. They talk about trust in the way that it should just be naturally obvious how you build trust. And so you've offered
True.
some very interesting concepts for us to grapple with, that trust is actually more intentional. Building
Mhm.
trust is more intentional than one might think. It's not just about not screwing up in the big things and obviously not lying and not cheating and
Mhm.
not stealing. Like I feel
Yes.
like that's the big three that people only think about. Don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal, and
Yes.
people will trust you. But it's actually not true. There's lots of other ways to break trust. And
And to build it, like showing up for something that matters to a stakeholder that doesn't matter to
ooh,
you.
that's
That's
good.
that's building trust. Like I trust I want you to trust that I care enough about you to be here.
Yeah,
Trust means different things, and I think as fundraisers we think trust means doing what we say, fulfilling the fundraising duty and stewarding that gift and talking in these sort of like, and not in any way to downgrade this, but this is my dramatic side. Like we talk in these heebie jeebies. It's like, just get back to basics here. This is a human. You are a human. We are not getting money from, AI or non-human entities. We are a human to human relationship. And so trust is built and broken in those moments where people feel unseen. Like, oh, you're not gonna, I don't know, like for me, um, meaning that person might think for me, it's really about calling me back in a timely way. That's a trust language thing for them.
oh
That
yeah,
that's like,
right.
oh, I trust that you understand what I need, and I hope that you can meet those needs. And those aren't things that they write down and tell you. So that's what I mean
Yeah,
about sort of building and breaking trust. And I do think you're right. I think we sometimes think of the big sort of 10 commandments of trust. Like, okay, I don't want to screw this big deal up, or I don't want to mess up in this meeting, or I don't want to bring in the wrong stakeholders. And that's where I kind of lean into authenticity. And so that's why I call it a triangle. It's like actually, if you have the trust and the authenticity, if even if you fail and you're vulnerable, you have the trust. You have the
yeah.
trust. So it's okay.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. Oh man. Well, I think it's fascinating that it's some things that you might not do that break trust as well. Like to your
Hmm.
point about not showing up for something that could be meaningless to you but important to them. And I struggle all the time. I mean, I make this same mistake too, but I always see it in my kids where they're saying, "Well, I don't want to do that. It has no benefit to me." And
Yes.
and fundraisers are usually good because they're always thinking about the other person, not
Yes.
themselves. Like I'm not going to this funeral because it
Yes.
makes me feel good about
Yes.
myself. I'm going to
Yes.
this funeral because I cared about this person or I care about the person that's going to be there and I want to show up for them.
Yes.
And
And
that's, one of a thousand examples, but
And I think that's where, I think there's some questions here where that's what I mean. Or maybe when I spoke to it earlier, you asked me a question about being able to bring a personal aspect to my work. And I just want to say that, like, that example of maybe a funeral or something that matters to a stakeholder, a donor, a board member. And I think that those are moments where you have to think bigger and broader than the outcomes in which we're focused on. And I think fundraisers in general are like that. I mean, I think they're relationship oriented and they are
sure.
investing deeply in relationships. But I think sometimes we forget that our work goes way beyond even the lifespan of a particular relationship. And so what I hope for a lot of fundraisers is that they realize they won't even see their legacy because the investments that they make in relationships will long live past their professional capacity. And so I guess what I mean by that is you have to make it somewhat personal so that you don't get bogged down by all the outcomes and all the algorithms in which you need to follow.
Right.
And so I
Right.
think that's another
Amen.
important thing about trust.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Well, let's switch subjects a little bit
Yeah.
to sort of the concept of a love language operating system. You often reference the idea of donor love languages and operating systems.
Yeah.
So, how do these help fundraisers better understand donor motivations and communication styles?
Yeah. This is a great question that I really think could marry all the quantitative information that we learn as fundraisers and all the professional seminars that we go to and all the things that pop up in Blackbaud that tell us we have to follow up with Joe Smith. So I'm going to switch gears and sort of complement all that training and work that fundraisers might have and say that you could literally take a worksheet, because I like to be really practical, and you could be drawing a picture as you're talking to a donor on the phone as a tool. And you're literally drawing like for me, it'd be a really bad sketch of a human. And I'm putting together like things that I'm picking up on. So like, oh my gosh, this person is built this way. So I'm building a profile, but I'm building a human profile of like, what do I think this person's love language is? And over time, you understand people's love languages. You understand them in a personal capacity. You might not be turning yourself on to that. Like what is going to intrinsically make this person feel fulfilled and be able to be seen and heard, and that their needs are being met. It's sort of a need value kind of system. That's what I mean by love language, is like, how are they going to feel that their needs are met? And if their needs are intrinsically met, they're more likely to want to give more of their time, of their treasure, of all these things, because people just intrinsically have needs. So you can build a profile. It could be like a fun little exercise, like, oh, Chris, okay. And Chris is made up of these historical stories, which we all know. We do a lot of research on donors. We listen. So that's what I mean by love languages. I have donors that are like outcome driven, like just, and they're not saying that. So again, tuning into your intuition, like they're not saying I'm out. Some are saying I'm outcome driven. So it's like, oh, love language, outcome driven. But
Right. They're saying how many kids got this scholarship last
yes,
year?
yes.
Was it more than the year before?
Yes. And I
Little hints.
want this money to go only to these particular expenses. And I want to make sure that my scholars transfer successfully. And then you have donors that are calling you, sharing explicit personal feelings about what they think is going on in the world and why they want to know more about your particular students or your particular mission. And so then you're writing this down, you're sketching out, maybe you add to the sketch, like, oh my gosh, like this really matters. Like political framework matters to this donor. That's part of their lung language, outcomes. And so I think that when you think about love languages as being these lights that you're turning on about people's profiles, and you're doing it in a more personal way, you're able to create this operating system, that allows you to talk to them in their language, but you're still mission centric. You're still thinking about your outcome. You're still thinking about the proposal, the annual gift. But I don't like to lead with that. I'm just going to be really frank with you. Like, it may not make me the best fundraiser or the most, successful fundraiser when it comes to numbers, though I continue to strive to be a learner. But I lead with that. I lead with connection, authenticity, what somebody's intrinsic needs are. And from there, I build everything that's a part of my responsibilities and jobs, which is to take those things, those assets, and that intel, and to connect it to another set of values, which is our value structure at the Santa Ana College Foundation. And then there is a relationship. Like, we're married as fundraisers to 200, 300, 400 people plus. So if you think about them as marriages, you have to respond to them in the same way you would personally, like, how I'm going to keep this going, and eventually the proposal driven moves management system might only take you so far. This can take you further.
Yeah.
So that's, I
So
guess,
this marriage that you're talking about, another way to say it is alignment, right? So
alignment. Yes.
alignment with sort of the donor's value structure, the organization's value structure, and then your sort of value structure
Yes.
alignment. So you're kind of trying to align you, the donor, and the organization together, marry them together in this way for a more positive outcome. Yeah.
Yeah, it's absolutely like listening back to what you were asking me about. You then synthesize, you hear things, you make the connection, and you take their language, which could be different. They could be speaking and saying things differently. You find the commonality, and you say, here's where we align. This is actually a part of what we do. Now, it's maybe a different a different part of what we do than what another donor focuses on. But here's alignment. And you always use that as the center stage, not you as the fundraiser or you as the donor. I always try to say to myself, is this conversation about students? I hope this conversation is staying about students. And I think somebody that you know very close to you has said this to me before. And I'll give her street creds. You know, Claudia Looney said this to me 5 years ago. She said, always put yourself, put a volunteer between you and trouble. And the way I use that, but I also use it as a way to stay mission centric with any constituent I'm working with, which is make sure that you keep a student between you and somebody else, and do that in a way that's unconscious. So is your mission always front? Is it the center stage? Is it the leading actor in a play? And if it is, it kind of allows for that value proposition to always be there. Because if we're always talking about students or about our mission, then it also creates like an apolitical zone. It's just like a powerful tool. It's just like, oh my gosh, this is not about me.
So good.
It's
Yeah.
not about you. And so I think that that's just something that I think about a
Good.
lot.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's good. That's good advice. And probably leads into this topic or this question that I was going to ask about those fundraisers who aren't as naturally outgoing or relational as you are, because
Mhm.
I think you sort of hit high marks in terms of your connectivity with people and your ability to just be extraordinarily supportive and a good friend to your donors. But what
Mhm.
does someone do who struggles with the personal aspects of fundraising?
What a great question for an industry that has very successful formulas that tend to work when it comes to how you can build trust and competency to be able to build resources. So I feel like you can lean on the same methods, but just
Okay.
have different content. And so, like when I was using examples like sketching out a profile of a person, you're like training your brain to pay attention to different things. Like what is this person's like, even if you're guessing at first, like what is this person's love language, or maybe a person that is not naturally connected or connected relationship oriented can think about aspects of their personal life, like how do they build personal relationships with others, what type of personal relationships do they build, and what are they based on, what are their love languages, what are their trust and social capitals, what marbles in the marble jar are they putting in and getting from others. You can literally transfer, because everybody has somewhat of a personal life, you can transfer some of those reflective points and start writing out the things you've learned about the relationships that you've built, the most meaningful ones. And you can transfer those skills into your professional capacity as a fundraiser, and not become dehumanized by it or think you're not as professional. Like, let's just sort of like get squash that whole idea that by being authentic or by being able to approach things in a way that is personal, and by assessing people's personal needs does not mean you're unprofessional. So I think if you're not naturally wired that way, you approach it the same way you can approach any other professional development skill. Like, you are going to train yourself by doing exercises. Maybe after a meeting you take notes, and they're different notes. They're not notes like, what do I think the next steps are going to be regarding the proposal or the ability for this person to give? Maybe it's like, what did I notice that was nonverbal about this particular donor? What things did the donor not share with me that I thought was very telling?
Mm.
What did the donor talk about? Um, what kind of questions did the donor ask? Um, just little things that can take you in more of a personal zone of somebody, right? And so I think those things can be trained, or you can skill yourself up. And just like me, I want to be around people that are much more engineer like in the way they approach their fundraising. I think we should intentionally complement our professional circles and try to be around people that think and act differently. And so that's a goal I have in 26 and 27.
No, that's amazing. Um, so what are some of the small actions that you think make the biggest difference in building donor trust and sort of long-term giving behaviors? I think this could be really exciting for some people. Like, what are some of the small things that you think make a big difference?
I think that your brand, all the way from the way that you can hone into the operation of your organization, like just doing everything with excellence, like that matters a lot to donors. And they won't always say it, but like people want to be associated with beautiful things. They
Okay.
want to be associated with top-notch things. And I don't mean exclusive things. I mean authentically driven, beautiful, well-crafted machines. And I think we should strive. I strive to be that way in the organization I lead. I want every annual report, every event, every touch point they have with a student to be authentic, to be beautiful, to be above and beyond their expectations. I think that matters to donors. And that's sort of like more of the Hollywood answer, which I do kind of intrinsically love to think about, because I think that we can defy gravity. I think we can defy gravity. And then the second thing is just people, I'm just going to go back to something I said in the first 5 minutes of the call. Like, what matters to donors is, did you share in a timely and real responsive way what their gift did and does for the organization? Did you do what you promised you were going to do? And what way can you weave in their part in it? And when I say their part, I mean actually specifically like what they bring. Like I have a donor who, you know, she informs my work because it's so personal to her. And then I have other donors where it's maybe more transactional. So they want to be given different types of feedback in terms of why it matters to be a part of their organization. So I think that donors, again, they just want you to listen and to respond to them in their language. And I think that's how you make them feel seen and heard. And I just think it's as simple as that, actually, sometimes.
That's great. Well, let's end
Yes.
with the exploration of the concept that personal equals professional.
Yeah.
And I think you've laid out some elements to us already that explain what you mean, but I'd love for you to just take us out with this explanation for us in the fundraising construct, what personal equaling professional means to you.
It means to me that any professional in any role can decide what this work is going to mean to them and take on a responsibility to make this work matter so much to them, even if it's 8 to 5 or 9 to 3. Even if you're not an executive and you don't carry the weight of the world on you, what it means to me is that you're going to put the work ethic and you're going to sprinkle you into the work you do. How is the work going to be meaningful? If you're in the work, you have to be reflected in the work, not because it's about you, but like, how can you tell people that you care so deeply about an organization and want them to do something intrinsically not necessarily the norm? There's no like investment where they're going to get something back that's related to a monetary compensation. So you have to decide what's this going to mean to me, and how am I going to make this a meaningful process for me, and then put that into your work. I mean, it touches work ethic, it touches the energy that people feel. It's real, and they want to, it's just palpable. They don't even know what they're responding to. But I'm a big believer, not to get back into the whole like hot stones and world of like gray, but like I deeply believe in energy. And I think that we are all not really tapping into the basic facts of physics here, which is that at the end of the day, your work will be more successfully driven and much more meaningful if you put your personal touch on what you do. And that is different for everybody. And I encourage it. I think it increases brand reliability. It's just so much. so much is unpacked there.
So good. Well, Christina, thank you for sharing all of this. And especially for me, this triangle of social capital, authenticity, and trust. Um, your expertise helps us better understand how these elements work together to strengthen these important donor relationships. And your insight give fundraisers practical ways to elevate their approach, deepen connection, and build a more meaningful experience for your donors. So thank you again. And to everyone listening, thank you for joining us for this episode of Mastering Fundraising. If you enjoyed this conversation, please like and subscribe to the podcast, and be sure to check out our other shows, Lead for Good and the Nonprofit Edge, where we meet with and dig deeply into the expertise of extraordinary leaders and learn from them and have a lot of fun doing so. So we appreciate you all being here, and we look forward to having you join us again very soon. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you for joining this episode of Mastering Fundraising. We hope the conversation was helpful and invite you to like and subscribe to this podcast for more conversations with extraordinary nonprofit and fundraising leaders. To learn more about Fulcrum Nonprofit Leadership, please visit us on the web at fulcrumleader.com. To learn more about the 5-Tool Fundraiser, please visit us at 5toolfundraiser.com. We want to hear from you. Please share your thoughts and ideas with us at hello@fulcrumleader.com. Thank you for the important work you do to make our world stronger. We look forward to welcoming you back during a future podcast. In the meantime, take care and be well.